Money gives you control. Control gives you tools. Tools will allow you the opportunities to do what you want to do. And when you have options and opportunity, you feel like you're limitless. And I feel like without limit, the sky is the limit.
Okay, before we get into the episode, let me just say this. In the last 4 months, we've gone from 700 subscribers to over 50,000. I have a crazy goal for the next 60 days, which is that I want this channel to go from 50,000 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers. Please subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my goal. Now back to the episode.
So when I say low and I speak like I was just at my lowest, I was angry. I was really just pissed. So like my obsession, not eat, not sleep, not do anything but make money, because I was living with a person that was just calling me out my name, hitting on me. Like there was just so much just beating me down that the more it happened, the more I was becoming that person of like, when I get up, I'm going to step on you. Like it was real, like when I get out of this, like I'm going to destroy you. Like it was just that for months. You got to think like I made my first 6 figures in September. I didn't get evicted till February. So from September to February, it was in hell. I literally, and it's crazy because my Facebook status is from those years. I talk about it. I'm like, when you hate somebody and you hate your situation so much more than you can breathe, you'll hold your breath until you can get out. Like, and I meant that. Like I really was on some like, by any means, I'm going to get out of this and I'm never going to look back. And that's exactly when I got out, I never looked back. It was getting to the point that like when people did try to talk to me about it, like I just wasn't even, I was just in tunnel vision because I was obsessed with surpassing the person that put me under their shoe in a sense. Like I literally felt like that person, like at one point in my life, I would have laid down and died for them. And I felt like they were like killing me. Like you never thought that the person you would lay down and die for would be the same person that was trying to kill you in a sense, like literally. So I just was like so obsessed with just surpassing the numbers I would hear him talk about or his goals or anything that I knew he did. I was obsessed with just getting past it. And then once I got past it, I was just looking, it was like one of those moments where you just look around like, okay, now what? And then that happened, my miscarriage. So it was like my miscarriage kind of brought me back down to earth. And yes, it was horrible. Definitely never, ever wish it on anybody. But I do think it was needed because I think that the way that I was navigating making money and the way that I was navigating my emotions, I think I eventually would have crashed out. I do think I would have crashed out emotionally because I was just so mad. I was just mad at everybody. I was mad at everything. Like I was just obsessed with like a revenge in a sense, where that gave me that peace of mind that there was just so much more. There's so many people that love me, my family, my friends. There's so many people that love me. And I felt so much love for this baby that it was just like, who cares? Yeah. Like you'll get a new boyfriend. you'll get a new apartment. You'll get another one. Like it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of that world. And that world sucked. So I just don't beat myself up over it because that's why when people are so upset, I'm just like, there's worse. Like, trust me, there's worse.
Yeah, I get that. Certain experiences, it's like, it makes things seem like insignificant by comparison.
Like, child loss is different. So it just, again, like, I just don't think there's anything that I could have went through or has happened that even came close to the amount of pain I felt in those moments. So when people come to me, I really just try to stress, like, it gets better. Like, trust me, it gets better.
Being a millionaire part, for me, couldn't be enough. The goal of being a millionaire. So there had to be this vision that was way bigger than myself. So that's what I would say to that person, 34-year-old me, and I would say to anybody else who is just like, I don't know how to get out of bed. I don't know the first thing about changing my current circumstance. Is if you feel that way, it's most likely because you've made it about yourself or you've made it about your very specific current circumstances. To me, in that moment, they were not, I want to almost say they weren't real. I was like delusional on purpose. And it was because the end game or the goal, the North Star, was about how many people can I positively affect What would happen if a backstage capital existed, where in venture capital, less than 10% of all venture funding goes to women, people of color, and LGBTQ founders, where white men make up only a third of the country. They get 90% of the funding. If I can make backstage capital happen, how many people would be positively affected? It didn't always start there. It wasn't always that. It was actually, to be honest with you, I did start with, I want to raise $1 million for my company. And in doing the research for that is when I learned that statistic that changed my life. Catherine Finney, her team, put that out years ago. And I learned that statistic and I said, wait a minute, everything I've been thinking is wrong. I don't need to worry about me getting $1 million and where that might take me. I could probably make it work. I'll figure out a way to make that $1 million, but I need to make that $1 million for us. And so because I had that while I'm sleeping on the floor, and anytime I talk about it, by the way, I can feel it and see it. I feel the floor. I have my jeans rolled up as a pillow, no covers. I have my suitcase right in front of my face so I don't have to see people walking by. And there's, lights are blaring. There's never any rest. And I don't think I would have made it several days, several weeks of that if I wasn't thinking about this bigger picture. So I think that's where you have to start. And if you find yourself really stuck, it might be because you're thinking too small.
I grew up in a matriarchal family, meaning that majority of the women in my family were very successful, extremely hardworking, and the figureheads in their households, from my mother to my grandmother to my aunt to my other aunt. So I saw that left and right, and I think that from the very beginning instilled work ethic in me, confidence to speak my mind around whatever it is that I believe, but also have the flexibility and ability to listen to other people's perspectives and hear their perspectives, right? Because they were all really good at that. My grandmother especially, she was very quiet, knowing that she probably knew more than what the person was saying on the other side, would just allow people to be kind of who they are. And I think that then translated into me just being very ambitious and having a certain level of tenacity and kind of just going for whatever it is that I wanted to do. And once I identified something that I was passionate about, it was kind of like a run and go from there, which was production, which was not even production because I didn't always know what that was, but it was creating experiences, like I mentioned earlier, and bringing people together. I knew that that started with like events, throwing parties, and that then evolved into actually producing live events and interning and seeing what that looks like on a larger scale. And then it only took me one internship and I fell in love. It was just like a week-long experience doing a fashion week show. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Look at all of these people. And we did all of this all for 10 minutes, 15 minutes of, a show. But the adrenaline rush and the satisfaction and gratification that I felt in being a part of that was something that was unforgettable. And I just couldn't wait to be able to do it again. And so I just continued to come back. Anytime they would call me, I'd be right there. I'd hop on that bus from DC. I was in school in Virginia at the time. And I would hop on the bus, call my grandparents, hey, I'm going to stay at your house for a week or so. I've got this job, and just kept doing it. And my professors supported it because they're like, I was studying marketing. They also didn't know really what production was, surprisingly, but it sounded interesting. So they would say, go for it. As long as you do your homework, it's fine. And I just continued to learn and explore and grow and connect with people and create these experiences continuously over time. That evolving into a business also happened organically.
I was a small business in Clinton Hill, and I had Essie and CND and Minx Nails and OPI reaching out to me. Like, I sat on the board of Dashing Diva. Like, I was this little tiny person doing this little tiny thing, but huge brands were recognizing the work that I was doing, you know, like Equinox, America. Like, I worked with every brand at some point, and I started to realize, and I don't think it was even until like more recently that I realized, like, oh, I was giving them that cachet. Because they were a big established brand, but I had a lock on Brooklyn and all that was cool in Brooklyn. You know, like, I get it, but I get it more now than I did then. Because I'm like, why does Chase want to work with me? Or why does American Express want to work with me? Like, this is crazy, you know? But I realize now better the lock that we had on that borough. Like, I literally was on a panel this week, and Lisa Price of Carol's Daughter said that when Carol's Daughter first got bought by L'Oreal, they had to open a hand and foot spa as an expansion of the brand. This huge step for this huge international company. And Carol's Daughter, being of Brooklyn, decided to do their location in Harlem. But she shared it on the panel, well, you kind of had Brooklyn on lock. And I'm like, a brand like that would be looking at what I was doing. I was like one single girl trying to hold things together with a paperclip, you know?
Yeah.
But you can be that small and still mean that much is what, you know, is what that shows. I did not plan for that, though. I was always planning for worst case scenario. If like nobody comes and nobody cares, this is what I can do. So
it's funny. Like, I have that was my same fear with starting this podcast. And the reason I think it's so frightening is if you care about something so much,
right?
What if no one else cared?
I know, it's
like, that's almost like it's a frightening scenario.
It's so heartbreaking, you know, because it's like, but this is all that matters to me.
Yeah,
know?
Like, this is my life.
Yeah. And like, I had, you know, left a company I was at for 9 years. I'd only worked at that company since I was like, you know, maybe college for sure. College, I was gonna say high school. I had worked at this company forever, and I didn't know how to work anywhere else. I didn't know how to do anything else. And so I'm opening my own business, and I'm like, okay, well, like, if only 10 people a day come, I'll be fine, because this was the plan that I made. And that's not what happened. I opened my business on July 22nd, and we were booked out for 2 weeks at that point, the day that I opened. Like, you can come and see it, but you can't get up in here for 2 weeks. And then that led to the business just constantly being overbooked and over busy. You know, 6 months in, I'm stressed out because I have to open another location, and I don't know where and I don't know how. 6 months into opening a business, that was my next challenge, you know? So I was not prepared for the level of success that I had with that business. And I was young, and I also, who would have thought, you know? You don't think that you're opening something that's going to kind of change the landscape. And it did, and it was wonderful, but it was really, really tough. It was really, really tough because I ended up having the problem of not being able to keep up with the demand and not feeling like I had the support to really manage it well. Yeah, that was tough. That was really, really tough. But that was just, I think that was like thinking like, okay, like, I was born in Brooklyn, but I'm not from Brooklyn. I grew up in Arizona. Those are my connections. I don't have relationships here. You know, my relationships I've established over time and reputation, but like, I call this home, but at that time, this was not home. This is where I was living. And I'm building a business, and I don't know a lot of people, and I don't know how it's going to work. And then it works, and it works really, really well. And I kind of had my ass handed to me because I wasn't prepared for the success. So the tough parts for me with that business weren't the traditional tough things about opening a business. The tough parts for me were, how do you manage the disappointment when people can't book services, you know, or how do you get people to be excited about the new location that's opening and not distracted by the fact that you can't get an appointment? And people don't like when they can't get what they want. So of course the criticism came, and it came heavy and it came hard if, you know, we weren't available, or it was 3 days before we had an appointment. So it was like, we were so gifted, and it was such a curse, you know? I learned a lot through that process of that business. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my capability. I think I plan very differently now, like knowing that I have good ideas and they will stand out. A lot of them will. Not every idea is good, but I have a lot of good goddamn ideas. I have a lot of things I haven't done yet that I think would be amazing still. And I think I do infuse a lot of creativity into the work that I do now, And I try to do it my own way or put my spin on things. I think now I am better prepared for how things will work and how they'll move. Like, I definitely feel like with my real estate career being my third career, I saw myself being where I'm at now. I saw that from day one. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like do something really special here. And what I see for myself in real estate is not realized yet at all. Like but I see it, and it's coming together beautifully, and I'm excited about that. But now I'm prepared, and so I'm glad that those type of things had to be worked out at that point in my life, because now I have much bigger opportunities that don't scare me as much and don't overwhelm me as much. I think like the things that now I have to consider and plan for probably would have been hard for me to process. But I've had so many experiences of winning and losing, because like even with my business, as great as it was, ultimately I felt like it was a failure because I lost passion for it and I felt burdened by it eventually.
It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when all you can see is darkness. It's really hard when people are trying to tell you there's light and you don't see that light. Like, it's really hard to convince somebody of that. And I think that it can take a situation, it could take a friend, it could take anything, but eventually that situation becomes your light. And for me, it was April 13th, 2018. So for me, that day was my turning point where everything that happened prior to that no longer mattered.
Why? What happened on that day?
My miscarriage. So my experience with child loss changed my perspective of everything. And I'm sure a lot of young women can talk about this. It just, to love someone that you, I don't want to ever say something, it's just a habit at this point, but to love someone you have never met, it makes you kind of, I don't know, the hate just left my body. Like that first interaction, that first ultrasound, the hate, nothing else mattered. Like once you lose something like that, it's like I lost a part of myself, and I realized that domestic violence is bad, but I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like I made it out and I'm in a great place, and this person hurt me, but this, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to really explain it. Like this person hurt me, but they're not here anymore. And I have so many opportunities. There's billions of people in this world that will love me and will treat me better. Or you know what I mean? And even with child loss, like, yes, I lost my son, but I have the opportunity again when I'm ready to have another child. So it put into perspective for me to just, one, be grateful for life because I almost died, but two, just don't get hung up on the small things. Like, especially when you're in such a dark place, like you got to just dig as deep as you can and just pull it out of you. Because when you pull it out of you, you will feel so much like lighter in a sense. And whether that's, a lot of people will feel darker and deeper in a hole when they try to work. So that's not always going to be the framework, but I promise you, money gives you control. Control gives you tools. Tools will allow you the opportunity to do what you want to do. And when you have options and opportunity, you feel like you're limitless. And I feel like without limit, the sky is the limit. You know what I mean? Because if you follow numbers are infinite. So you're chasing that high. But if you chase the opportunity that you're looking for, or the option that you're looking for to open up a new door, I feel like you're fulfilled when you walk through it.
I'm kind of curious because I think sometimes when we're growing up and the people around us are driven and successful, it's like making decisions like to just leave school can feel very difficult. Even if you've had that spark of, I'm meant to do this, to just do it and leave school and do something that's a bit untraditional and is a risk, can be very difficult. Was it difficult for you?
No. It wasn't difficult, but because I saw other people that had done it before. And I also, my mom was always just very supportive of whatever it is that I wanted to do, as long as I wasn't, in the streets or, doing anything crazy on drugs, having kids, whatever the case may be. It wasn't like I was leaving school to just run off and aspire to, and there's nothing wrong with this, but like be an artist or going into something that wasn't stable. I left school because I had a job offering, and I always intended to be able to go back to school and study alongside, but working in a startup is really, that's not the reality. Or perhaps I didn't have the discipline. I can also say that at the time. But I think having examples, like I would always think about Elon Musk is like my new reference. I'm like, he didn't go to school and look at him. He has satellites in the air. He owns space. But I can't remember who my old references were, but I remember continuously like learning about different producers, different business people that hadn't graduated from school. My boss that hired me at the time would tell me stories and give me those examples so that I didn't have this like guilt of feeling as though I don't belong where I am simply because I didn't secure a degree. And I think at that time, it was like 2008, 2009, people that started to, I don't want to say it became a bit of a norm, or it started to become okay to pursue something, especially in the arts, like a production or a trade without, like I like to consider production, without having a 4-year degree. I didn't have an interest in going to film school. And I didn't have an interest in sitting in DC and wasting my time to secure a degree versus going after what I knew I would be good at.
There's nothing wrong with being an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. There's nothing wrong with door dashing, make ends meet, or working the 9 to 5 or doing the corporate gig like you're doing. And over time, building up to something else. Right. I don't want anybody to think that I think that you shouldn't, that you have to go all in all at once. That's another thing that's important. You want to have some combination of starting with what fulfills you. What is worth doing, excites you, makes you excited to wake up in the morning. Like every night, when I go to sleep, I'm so excited to wake up the next morning. Like I can't wait to wake up the next morning and think through more strategy. I go to sleep thinking through strategy. I dream of it. I wake up with an idea. I write the idea down, and then I go back into the cycle. That wasn't always the case because I hadn't found the thing. So it has to be something that you're just, to be honest with you, got to be obsessed with it. If you truly want to make $1 million doing it sustainably, and that's just your first $1 million, you have to be obsessed with it. So something that's you find be obsessed with, and that's where it goes back to you probably already know it and you don't even realize it. Also has to be something that is, in my opinion, ethical, something that helps someone else, because again, that'll keep you going. That'll be the buoy. I think the word is buoy. That keeps you afloat when things are tough. Has to be something that makes money. And it has to be something that, I'm going to say this, it might come out the wrong way. It can't be something that you only sell to broke people. It has to be something like a lot of people I talk to, they have this idea like something fulfills them, but they're like, and I want, I'm going to be the cheapest version of it. And I'm going to make it really accessible for so many people because I want our people to come up. You make it really accessible to so many people and it's so cheap. It's not going to be sustainable in a good business model, and you won't be able to keep doing it. And therefore you won't help any of the people you want to help. So it has to be something that is actually valuable, something that's valuable to someone else, so valuable that they'll spend actual money on it, like real dollars. That's another thing. So we've talked about so many different things. There's some things I want to go to. I don't want to forget them, but you want to kind of lock yourself in a room, go on a staycation, do what you got to do. Pen to paper. What's fulfilling to me? What's something that is helpful to others, valuable to others, ethical? What's something that has a higher price point ultimately, or a version of it has a higher price point that I can get to? Because you think about the Tesla model. They didn't start with something that costs like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. They started with something that was so unattainable to make it possible for the more attainable. Now, I won't get too much into Tesla because I'm not a big fan of the boy, but that model is interesting. The Apple model is interesting. Anyway, so that's part of the research and development. It's also in truly, research and development is also truly studying. I'm going to ask you a question I think is going to prove this point. How many other people's YouTube channels do you study? If you had to guess.
Oh. You know what? It's hard for me to give an exact number because there's a few kind of core channels that I really study and like I'm aware of like everything they're posting.
Yep.
But then I use YouTube so much
Yeah.
that I'm actually studying like even the smallest channels.
Yes. You're proving my point.
Yeah.
Do you know, you probably don't even realize this because it's just automatic to you. You're studying. Of course, I'm going to study the thing almost obsessively, probably, that I'm trying to excel in. Most people don't. Most people couldn't tell you their competition if their life depended on it.
I had a lot of confidence because I'd set a lot of records in my company. I'd worked at MAC Cosmetics at a very vital time of their expansion and who they were. There was a point in the times where like everyone just knew that company, you know, and everyone just knew that brand. And I got to work there at that time. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of like working at the most popular brand that you can imagine in the world right now, like working there. So then that's a huge thing that, oh, you work there? Oh my God, what's that like? You know, so I was very proud of where I worked, but then I also really asked a lot of questions and really was competitive and really did well there. And so I look up and I'm really helping to open stores for MAC all over New York and the East Coast. And I'm helping to train, you know, store managers and build teams that are going to run these stores and really being trusted with their accounts and their largest accounts in New York. And I'm 30. And it's like, I realize that is a huge responsibility. And I think I can do it on my own for myself, for my stuff and my ideas. That's how I feel. I feel like if I can do it for them and they trust me, like I can do it for me. So I start just a notebook and I just start writing down my idea of this concept. And, you know, that motivation and spirit was all around me. Like I'd go on Fulton Street and I'd see all these really cool Black owned businesses. And Lisa Price was on DeKalb with Carol's daughter. And I just had every reason to believe that I could do something like that just as cool, but myself. So I got to a point where I was prepared to do it, you know, and I'm strategic. So I had gotten myself financially prepared, like my living situation, my lifestyle. I was set up to really dive in and do the business. And so on April 1st, April Fool's Day, I gave notice and I gave a month's notice. May 1 is my first day where I'm going to be just like sitting in a cafe and working on my business plan, you know, very casually. And that's literally May 1st. And I'm sitting in a cafe and randomly asked the person that was serving me, like, if they know anything about the rents around here. And the guy's like, no, but my landlord's in the back and he owns everything around here. You should talk to him. That like one conversation on day 1 of not having a job led to me having a lease, keys, and a space within less than 60 days. And so now I'm forced to implement everything that I've been creatively writing in one notebook for the last 3 years. And I just think at that time, I just didn't care. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I didn't really know all the different places I would bump my knees and knock my head. And I just didn't understand that at the time. I hadn't opened a business in the city of New York before. You have no idea how tough that is, you know? So I thought I could do it. And I think it's great that I thought I could do it. I think now I'd be like, oh God. But then I was like, yeah, I just need to like get some keys and get a place and put some wallpaper up and it'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like I just was so naive. It worked. And I've always had good ideas. I've always had great ideas about marketing things. I've always loved before I even knew what marketing was, I've always loved in my mind showing off things that I love. If it's this glass of water, I'll sell you a gallon of it. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted services at that time, nail services, beauty services, to be fun, to be chic, to be affordable, to be uplifted, and just be upgraded overall in Brooklyn. And I thought that I could do that. And I thought that I could take that task at hand. And I did it. And I did it well for 10 years. And so much so that I opened multiple businesses.